ये ख्वाहिश ज़रूर है कि जब हम आए तो आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में वो एक शोबा भी मौजूद हो। आप सबके ताउन का, आप सबके सब्र का मैं शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ और शुक्रिया के साथ ही मैं इजाज़त चाहता हूँ।
मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ डॉक्टर अनवर अहमद साहब का और यकीन दिलाता हूँ कि यहाँ जिस तरह के बेटे का जिक्र किया गया उस तरह के बेटे और बेटियां नहीं बैठी, बहुत सब्र से बड़े ध्यान से वो डॉक्टर बासत कोशर की गुफ्तगू सुनेंगे कि देखें कि सैयद अहमद खान की फिक्र की आज से क्या बताओगे। जनाब मोहतरम डॉक्टर बासत कोशर।
सबसे पहले मैं बहुत माजरत खा हूँ कि जो मेरी ये प्रेजेंटेशन होगी वो उर्दू में नहीं हो सकेगी और मेरी उर्दू इतनी अच्छी नहीं है कि मैं इस महफिल के सामने उस जो हक है इस प्रेजेंटेशन का मैं उर्दू में कर सकूं। तो माजरत के साथ मेरी प्रेजेंटेशन अंग्रेजी में होगी। First of all, my gratitude to the University of Gujrat for inviting me here. It was a surprise to have received this invitation. I'm here and I will try to do my best to address the issue, is Sir Syed Ahmed Khan relevant today? When we look at what is happening globally, and we look at that part of the world that the rest of the world aspires to emulate, meaning Western Europe and North America, when we look at those societies closely and see what are some of the most pressing issues that are being discussed there. First of all, the most pressing issues are, one of the ways to get an idea is to look at the CNN and BBC, the latest political conflicts, the latest economic turmoil. But that understanding reality at that level, you don't have to be a university student, you don't have to be a university teacher to understand reality at that level. Looking at it at a different level, we see that right now in Western Europe, North America, a question is being repeated again and again. What does it mean to be an American? Question being asked in America. What does it mean to be British? Question being asked in England and the UK. What does it mean to be French? What does it mean to be Swiss? What does it mean to be German? This debate has emerged with an incredible amount of force that was difficult to foresee 30 to 40 years ago. And why is this? Why are the people in America asking this question? Why are people in the UK asking this question? Throughout Western Europe, the simple reason is they are faced with new circumstances in which, while they thought they knew what it meant to be American, new facts on the ground are challenging that definition. They knew what they thought meant to be British, but new facts on the ground are challenging that definition. French, German, Swiss. What does it mean to be an American when second and third generation immigrants from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Mexico, Brazil, Honduras, Egypt, they are claiming to be American. What does it mean to be British when third generation Afro-Caribbeans, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshi are also claiming to be British? And if you have kept up with the news, the whole debate on the hijab issue, the whole debate on the minarets in Switzerland. So what does it mean? What does it mean to be X? Can X be defined by geography? Can X be defined by ethnicity? Can X be defined by language? And when we look at it closely, for much of the 20th century, being X has been largely defined by geography, ethnicity, and language. In the United States, to be American meant you are a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant who speaks English and who lives within these geographical bounds. Well, those conditions no longer are sufficient to define what an American is. I think you get the point. Their process of globalization is causing a crisis of identity at the global level. It doesn't matter where we look around the globe. Europe, North America is one. And even if we look at the emerging global powers, China and India, what does it mean to be Chinese in the 21st century? What does it mean to be Indian in the 21st century? Especially among that particular social group, the elites in China and India, who are rapidly abandoning their own language, rapidly abandoning their own particular culture, adopting English as their primary language, and adopting the ways of the global elites as their culture rather than the culture from the Confucian tradition or the Hindu tradition. So if one is an Indian or a Chinese and has broken away from the Confucian and Hindu traditions, speaks English, culturally is no different than the bourgeois living in New York or Chicago, what does it mean to be Chinese or Indian? Similarly, globalization is causing a crisis of identity in the Muslim world. One of the manifestations of this crisis and confusion is standing in front of you and speaking to you. If we look beyond the headlines, and if we are courageous enough to look beyond our own parochial concerns, and how parochial and childish are our concerns, there is nothing happening in Pakistan, no crisis in Pakistan, which is not the local manifestation of a global crisis. पाकिस्तान में कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं हो रही जो आपको दुनिया के तकरीबन हर मुल्क में नहीं मिलेगी. If you think the economic crisis here is bad, look at what is happening in the United States. At least we have an excuse. We're a small, backward, third world country. What's their excuse?
If you're talking about the lack of political leadership, look at the people who are competing to be the Republican candidates in the United States. You think we have a dearth and we have a crisis of leadership in Pakistan? Look at fanatics, utter fanatics. One of these fanatics is going to be the Republican candidate. If you think we're having a cultural crisis, look at Western Europe. That's besides the point. When we emerge out of this parochialism, we will realize that among all the crises right now, probably the most compelling and the most intractable is this crisis of identity. And I think it is here probably that Syed Ahmed Khan is most relevant to us today. Because 150 years ago, he was among the first to see what something like globalization, the challenge that something like globalization was going to pose to identity. In this case, particularly to Muslim identity in British India. For those of you who are into history, it's taught that the East India Company is the first multinational corporation in human history. And the ravages wrought on British India, or the culture of the Hindus and the Muslims in British India by the British East India Company are very well documented. And then the crises that emerged as a result of that. And if we look at Syed Ahmed Khan's ideas, his writings, we notice that he is trying to articulate or formulate a definition of identity that brings geography, ethnicity, language, and most importantly, religion into the picture. That an individual's identity cannot be defined by geography by itself, or ethnicity by itself, or language by itself, and dare I say, or by religion by itself. I'm grateful to Khurshid Nadeem Saab, the way he began his presentation and the way he ended his presentation. Both the supporters of Syed Ahmed Khan, I think this point needs to be emphasized again, as well as his critics, are equally wrong, and they are equally intellectually dishonest. They are equally intellectually dishonest by downplaying, by neglecting the role that religion played in Syed Ahmed Khan's own self-understanding. Islam, commitment to Islam, and here I will use the word, commitment to orthodox Islam. आजकल की जो मरवजा अल्फाज हैं या जो भी हैं, I'm sorry, I'm butchering उर्दू, आजकल की इस्तिलाहात में से हम उनको कहेंगे कि वो वहाबी थे, देवबंदी नहीं थे, बरेलवी नहीं थे, वो वहाबी थे और कट्टर वहाबी थे. In terms of the fiqh that he practiced. Khurshid Nadeem Saab had given you a couple of illustrations of his deep commitment to Islam. I will add to that one more. Whoever the highest British officer in India was at that time sent a request to Syed Ahmed Khan that my wife
and the ladies of my house would like to meet your wife and the ladies of your house. So Syed Ahmed Khan ने कहा कि शरीयत इस चीज़ की इजाज़त नहीं देती. For a Muslim woman to be in the presence of a non-Muslim woman. इतने वो कट्टर थे. दाढ़ी तो उनको आपने देखी हुई है. Sir Syed Ahmed Khan's relevance. He is personally facing the ravages and the challenges of globalization, and he's trying to maintain an integrated and dignified self in the face of this onslaught. His commitment to language, Urdu, his commitment to geography, he's a son of this soil, he is loyal to this soil, and his commitment to religion. Now we may differ with how he integrated the 3 or the 4 elements into his personality, but the one lesson I think we cannot even try to escape is that in a globalized world, we are going to have to integrate these 3 or 4 elements if we're going to produce healthy selves. If we are going to produce selves who are self-confident. And here I come to probably the second most important reason why Sir Syed Ahmed Khan is relevant today. Again, if you look at his life and his work, it gives us a sense of what a self-confident self looks like. What does a self-confident self look like? And I think the lesson he holds for us, I mean, is it the self-confident self of George Bush? Either you're with us or you're against us, and if you're against us, then we will bomb you back to the Stone Ages. Is that a self-confident self talking? Is it that self-confident self who attains a position of power and then treats everyone below him or her as feudal serfs and considers the area over which they have authority to be their personal feudal fiefdom, as is the norm in our culture? Is that a confident self? Is that the sign of a confident self? Or is it the sign of a confident